Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you all joining us today. I'm calling in from San Diego, so it's the morning for me. We've got Erica on the East Coast. I'm sure we've got some of you from all over the world, probably nighttime, middle of the night, wherever you are. So happy to have you all here. On that note, if you could, in the chat box, go ahead and let us know where you're calling in from and let us know what number event this is for you. Would be excited to see all of that. So my name is Laura. I am one of the San Diego chapter leaders. I've been to countless events. This is somewhere in the 70th number for me. But most of these events Erica has hosted. So I'm so excited to finally have her be on the other side and we get to hear her talk today, which is super exciting. So before we go into all things Erica, we're going to talk about all things TNN. So let me just share my screen real quick. Okay, all right. So as many of you know, we kicked off the Nomadic Network just a little bit over a year ago with all of these live community events across the world. It was such a great way for everyone to meet up with like-minded travel enthusiasts in their community. And then as we know, the pandemic hit and that brought everything virtual. We've had over 100 and some events, but it's been great because now we've been able to hear from a variety of speakers on topics on so many different things. And now we've been able to connect not just locally with our travel community, but with everyone internationally. And I know there's been a lot of wonderful relationships that have been formed because of this. So it's been a bit of a blessing to have these virtual events as well. All right, just a couple things to keep in mind. If you're comfortable, turn your camera on. We love to see your smiling faces. And I know it's always fun for the presenter to be able to interact with you that way. I will keep everyone muted for the duration of the call. I know everyone's comfortable with using the chat box. We always have a chatty group, so definitely feel free to chat anything in there to connect with people. And then if you have questions throughout the presentation, if you can just write the word question first so I can find it and I'll keep track of everything and then make sure we get all of those answered for you after the presentation. As you know, the speakers all do this out of their kindness of their hearts. So we are so appreciative and grateful for them, and especially for Erica being here today sharing with us. As some of you know, we have an exclusive community called the Patreon community. This is a great place where you get all these extra perks, such as you can get replays of the event today and all the other events that are on our calendar. There's a lot of stories that Nomadic Matt shares, live Q&As, and there's an exclusive Facebook group too. It's tons of perks, just a great way to give back to the Nomadic Network community for just a few dollars a month. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and check that link out for more information. All right, with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And now we are here for the main reason we all came, to hear from our lovely Erica. So I'm so honored to introduce her. She is, as many of you know, the director of the Nomadic Network. She has been with the Nomadic Matt team since 2013 and has hosted over 100 events in this year, which is amazing. So I'm sure many of you have been to one event with her, and if not, you are now. She kicked off her worldwide travels when she finished her university studies in Qatar. She then taught English in Thailand and South Korea. And then she moved to a small Caribbean island called St. Vincent, which is actually one of my favorites. And from that led her to working on some farming cooperatives in rural Zambia. She's traveled extensively, lived other places around the world. And I think if you all know Erica, you know she has an amazing smile, a zest for life, the most contagious laugh and personality. And I think anyone that has met her on the travel road, I'm sure has just experienced this amazing person that we have here today with us. So I can't wait to hear about these wonderful stories that she has to share with us about her adventure. So without further ado, I'm so honored to introduce the one and only Erica.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Thank you so much, Laura. Oh, I love this. And so many familiar faces. Mia, Stephanie, Iris. I see Jane. I see Jess. I see Shannon. I see Clay. I see so many people. And I'm sure I'm not seeing a lot of people because it's the middle of the day. So maybe some of you are just listening. But I just wanted to say thank you before I even start for coming on. Honestly, I took this on like 2 weeks ago after I believe Stephanie asked me to in the Patreon group. And I have had so much fun going through all my photos and creating the weirdest presentation for you guys. So I'm going to start it. And I just want to say that you guys are amazing for being here. And I will share this presentation with anyone that wants it through my Instagram. So if you guys don't already follow me on Instagram, go for it, because then I can easily share the presentation with you. Just because also I think I'm gonna go over time because I talk a lot. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Erica Virvo. Hackman is my married name. And this presentation is just sharing like sort of behind the scenes of the person that's been talking at you for the last 100 events and hosting these. So it doesn't have like a super purpose like most of our events do, but I always love learning about the travels of other people. And so I really created this to be something where you could like get to know me better and get to know like what I've done in the world. This little guy was flossing his teeth with my hair in South Africa. This was an incredible bush baby retreat, by the way. We were one of those places where the bush babies are actually like saved and then you're not allowed to touch them, but they're allowed to touch you. It's in Hartsby Port Bay and in South Africa, and I highly recommend going. It was awesome. But yeah, I run the Nomadic Network. It's been super fun. I've been working with Matt for over 7 years, and this has by far been the most fulfilling position that I've had at our company. And I honestly feel like it's part of my life's work is just traveling and talking to travelers and meeting all of you guys and creating community. And so this has been just such a joyous year for me, especially being in lockdown. This has been incredible. This is our New York City event that happened in 2019. Lots of familiar faces there. And so that's who I am. And then throughout this whole thing, I really challenge you, like some of the places that I say, just like in the chat, say, I have been to. So when it comes up, just say, oh, I've been to Qatar. Oh, I've been to St. Vincent or wherever I'm talking about, and just like see how many people do that in the chat, because I'm so curious. I feel like the places I go, I never meet people that have been there before, or I rarely meet people. And so I'm curious in this community with this group of people, like who's been where. All right, so I'm gonna start. I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, went to school in Virginia at the #1 public art school in the nation, which I don't say because I'm like, whoo, I'm like the best artist ever, but that got the attention of the government of Qatar, and they actually brought our branch, like, so the design school of our school in Virginia, they actually brought it to Qatar. So I was a very broke, very opportunistic college student. I went to every free event in Virginia and loved it. And I was also really good at interior design, which I've never made a single dime off of in my whole career. So you could probably see this presentation is not the most well-designed thing. I have no connection to design anymore. It's just, it is what it is. I studied it years ago. But I love that I did interior design because it honestly set me on this path for this whole travel world that I went into. When I was a sophomore, I went to this benefit that was put on by the dance program called the For Africa benefit, and became just obsessed with going to Africa, anywhere in Africa, didn't care the country. I saw all these women dancing in all these colorful cloths, and I was obsessed. And I had no clue how I was gonna get there. I'd never traveled anywhere by myself before. I'd never really traveled before, except to England a bunch of times with my mom. And so I basically made my life about Africa. I changed every single design project into some African design project. These are this, photo of me with these wooden things. That was a bridge that I had to build for my building systems class. Nobody's looked like elephants except for mine. I wore a muumuu, like an African muumuu that I got from Mama Africa, a store in Richmond, when I presented. And I talked about how 2 elephants had to kiss for this bridge to actually work. And my teacher literally said, I cannot believe this is how you're presenting your bridge project. So I just like made my life about traveling even before I ever stepped on a plane. And so then like I said, I was opportunistic. I always went for free things. So even before I wanted to travel, I heard that you could go to Qatar. So from freshman year to sophomore year to junior year, I actually applied for this program where you could get sent for 2 weeks for free to go to this conference in Qatar. And all I wanted to do was go somewhere for free because I was broke. I didn't know what Qatar was. I was an interior design student. I had no plans of traveling. And my 3rd year, I basically just begged them. I said, listen, I'm sure I'm the only person that has applied for 3 years in a row. Just send me. Like, why aren't you sending me? This is crazy. And so they sent me. Not that many people applied. I want to say 25 people applied for 20 spots. I don't know why I didn't get it the first 2 years. And so I ended up in Qatar for 2 weeks. And honestly, it was the best 2 weeks of my life. This is not in Qatar, but I wanted to show you this picture. Right before I got sent to Qatar, I was in my building systems class, and they introduced these 3 girls, Hala, Sally, and Samreen, and they were exchange students that were living in Qatar. They're not Qatari, they're from Jordan and Pakistan. But they were living in Qatar, and I said, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, did you just walk into my class right now? Like, I don't know anything about this country I'm going to. So I introduced myself, and I was like, listen, you guys are about to be my best friends. Like, I will take you anywhere you want to go in America, in Virginia. I brought them to my house in Connecticut. This is us in New York. We went exploring, and I was like, I will show you everything about my country that I can, but please tell me about Qatar because I have no clue what's going to happen there. And so basically, I was really good friends with them for like 3 months before I went to Qatar. And then when I actually went there, they set me up with their sisters. So every day after the conference, I was like invited to somebody's house, or they brought me to the mall, or they brought me to the desert. Like they brought me everywhere for 2 weeks. And I had the most incredible time in Qatar, and such an incredible time that I actually applied to go study there. So then I was a university student in Qatar, and I was all set up to take out tons of student loans to go to Europe. But the second that I stepped foot in Qatar and saw the amount of hospitality that people were showing me, I was like, no, like this is where I need to go. I need to be in Qatar. And what was actually really disheartening and funny was that even though I had spent 2 weeks in Qatar and nobody else that I knew actually knew where Qatar was, they would say, oh, Qatar, that sounds fun. Like, what part of the world is that in? And I'd say the Middle East, and they're like, oh, don't go there. I was like, I already did. I was already there. It was great. They were like, oh, they're going to treat you so bad. I was like, but you didn't even know that was a country a minute ago. This is a very weird preconception that you have about this country that you know so little about. And so I use that as impetus to have literally the best year of my life. I wanted to prove everybody wrong because I had so much pushback from people in the US about going to the Middle East as a woman. and as a single woman. And actually, I honestly couldn't have like wished anything else for myself, because the fact that I was there by myself and as a woman, so many of my friends were so confused, and so many people don't do that, that they were like, wait, where's your family? Your family is in Connecticut? Well, okay, come to my house for dinner, or come to my sister's wedding. And all of these women that I was in school with treated me like their sister. Literally, like, didn't invite any of the other friends to the weddings, but I was always invited. Like, didn't invite any of their other friends to dinner at their house, but I was invited, because they were like, this poor girl has no family, and this is such a family-oriented community. So I was always invited everywhere, and I got to go to so many different family dinners, family gatherings, just like family days. They have family days in Qatar. It's Friday, and you could just like hang out with a family all day, which is so fun. And I feel like we should bring that back in America. And yeah, it was incredible. You could see here at the bottom in the middle, that was my dorm room. That was the living room to my dorm room. It was an extremely privileged stay I got in Qatar. The dorms were actually the teachers' housing. They had just built new teacher housing, and so we were in the old teachers' housing. So I had like a huge bed, a stocked fridge when I got there. It was an incredible year that I spent in Qatar. I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks. Then I spent 4 months. I spent a semester. Then I ended up just graduating from there. And it was insane. Like, the Queen of Qatar for my graduation gave me a gold diamond ring with my name inscribed in it. Not just me, everyone that graduated that year. So yeah, it was just an incredible experience. And I honestly, as like this broke opportunistic college student, I was like floored with everything that was happening to me. And when I was in Qatar, I actually had the chance to go to Hong Kong and Cambodia. And when I was in Cambodia, I had this realization. I was like, you know what? I really don't want to do interior design. I don't know what I'm skilled to do. But in Cambodia, I saw that people, at least in Siem Reap, and from my like 20-year-old perspective, I was like, people that speak English seem to have jobs. And so I could probably help people speak English here. So I started Googling, how to teach English in Cambodia, and everything was so expensive. And I ended up finding a job that I could get in Thailand as a volunteer English teacher for only $200 placement fee. And then they put me in a home with the head English teacher at a school. Now, how many people have been to Thailand? I don't know. I can't see the chat. I see some hands. Yeah. Okay. I assume that quite a few people have been to Thailand. Who's been to Isan, Thailand? Okay. I worked and lived in Khon Kaen, which I lovingly dubbed as the land of no English. And it was the first place I'd been that didn't even have translations like on a stop sign or anything like that. Like, literally, I became such an avid reader because there was so little English that I felt like if I wasn't reading books in my spare time, I would forget how to speak English. This photo is of me serving American Thanksgiving to all the Thai English teachers that worked at my high school. I was a volunteer English teacher there. And I ended up befriending all the English teachers for the specific reason of the first day that I showed up at the school, every single one of them came up to me and said, "I'm so sorry," like in a little more broken English, "So sorry, no English." I'm like, "Oh, what do you do here?" "English teacher." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well," you're the 9th person that said that to me, so we're probably gonna have to be friends. And so I made it my goal to just like befriend all these English teachers and really speak to them in English, and hopefully like have this trickle down effect, like have the confidence of the English teacher boosted so that they could really teach English to the students, because I didn't know how long I'd be there. I ended up there for 4 months, but yeah, I knew I couldn't make the kind of difference I wanted with the students, and so I really focused on the teacher. I looked like a Thai student in the top picture. Everyone thought I was a Thai student. I would go to Thai English competitions in Thailand, and people would be like talking to me in Thai, asking me to sign up, and I'm like, no, I'm actually I'm one of the judges. And the photo in the bottom is the grandmother that I lived with, May Mom. She was very sweet and spoke no English, and it was really great. When I ran out of money, which I did, because the way I got to Thailand was I waitressed, and I waited until I had $5,000 saved up, moved to Thailand, spent it in 4 months, and then I had to actually make money somehow. So I got a job in South Korea now that I was a trained English teacher with my TEFL certificate. And I lived there for 14 months, and it was an incredible opportunity. I loved teaching English in South Korea. I loved South Korea, honestly. The 14 months I spent there, I could not have been more in love with the whole culture and everything that we did there. I spent 14 months and was able to save $21,000 and then use the money that I made in South Korea to travel for the next 21 months. So that was my whole point. Like, I could go home and waitress again, or I could make money while I was on an adventure. And so that's what I really wanted to do. And here are just some photos from South Korea. I mean, it was an incredible time. I took some Korean classes. I bought some traditional clothes at a thrift store, and we used to wear them every once in a while. And went on lots of adventures. And also in the bottom corner, you'll see like a little worksheet. We got to make up our worksheets and teaching whatever we taught. And I was always having people write stories about my family. Like, I would show them pictures and I'd say like, write a story about this, and then I would send them home to my family. It was very cute, very adorable. Okay, so while I was in South Korea, I found an incredible program on Google because I was still obsessed with going anywhere in Africa. So I was like, how to get to Africa for free, right? So this is what I'm doing on Google like 8 or 9 years ago, which was not that easy. And I found this program that said, if you move to this island in the Caribbean, we'll send you to Africa. And I was like, what? It looked like the jankiest website I'd ever seen. I was like, they could be stealing my money. It cost $4,500 to do this 14-month program. And I was like, let's see if it works out. So pretty soon I was on a flight to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, had never heard of this island before. I was like really pumped. I was on a big 747 to Barbados, and then they put me on this tiny little plane. It was like 20 people. I think there were only 7 of us on the 20-seater plane to get to St. Vincent. And I was like, when I got on that plane, I was like, why is nobody going to this island that I'm about to live on? What's happening? Where are the people? Turned out to be an anomaly. Like, every other time I flew in, there was a full plane and it was like 100 people at least. But it was a very surreal experience. And I lived on this international community service learning like commune, basically. It was a school, and they had all these people from all over the world. And it was rather challenging, but it was also one of the best things I've ever done. I mean, I'm from Connecticut. I've literally never not worn shoes before, and I didn't wear shoes for the entire 6 months I was there. Like, I just got so connected to nature. I'd never farmed before. We were not only farming, but we were collecting our rainwater and like seeing how much water we were using, and we were composting everything we ate, and we were taking care of pigs, like you can see, and so many things I'd never done before. We were living with a ton of animals and also people from all over the world. So it was pretty incredible. You'll see at the bottom, in the bottom corner, that's me riding a gravel truck. So like, this is like a super high gravel truck and I'm like hitchhiking on the back with all these Rasta guys. It was just like such a different life, you know? I hope you guys are writing in the chat like, I've been to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, if anyone has. I can't see. But yeah, we also volunteered at schools there. We volunteered on organic farms, and it was just a really great experience. And so they were teaching us basically how to make a difference in rural communities, and they were doing that by showing us like, you know, some of the skills we would need so that they could send us to different parts of sub-Saharan Africa in groups of 2 or 3, and then so we could make a difference there. And so here's more of St. Vincent. It's literally the Garden of Eden. This place is so cool, and there's no tourists because they have black sand because there's a volcano, so it's not like the typical Caribbean island. I highly suggest going there. I mean, it's pretty cheap. I don't know really what you would do if you didn't live on a commune, but it's a really beautiful place. Yeah, and so then after 6 months, they sent me to Zambia with this other girl, Karina, who's in most of the pictures from now on. We travel all over the world together now. But basically, I worked with farming cooperatives. So the farming cooperatives were already, they already existed. And, you know, being someone that was very conscious of like not going in and saying, I'm going to build a school, and then having that school just be like an empty shell a year later when nobody is like there because I have left the country, and you know, I'd seen too many of those projects sort of like get abandoned. So Karina and I decided that we really just wanted to like put a jolt of energy into something that was already happening. And so they had these farming cooperatives that were sort of like, you know, so people would show up if they wanted. And so we went in and sort of revitalized them. And really what's quite funny is what I was doing in Zambia is sort of exactly what I do now for TNN. So we had these farming cooperatives where we basically didn't know enough about farming to teach farmers, right? Because they're actual farmers. So we said, okay, who wants to teach on tomato farming today? And then they would come and teach, and we would just gather people together. And so that's basically what I do with TNN, right? That's why we have all different speakers from all over, because you know, not everyone is an expert in everything. And so that's what we were doing in Zambia. So here I am teaching a lesson on how to keep records for your crops. At the bottom here, can you see this like big yellow vegetable fruit? Okay, can you, well, I can't see the chat, so I was gonna say, can you guess what it is? That's actually a cucumber, right? Crazy. So we did a lot of farming. That blue dress is a dress that I sewed by candlelight for myself. We were quite bored with our free time in where we were living, and I'll show you a photo of where we were living. So this is the family that we lived with in Zambia at the bottom, the whole family. We lived in Mupundu, Zambia, which was like a small town, but then we lived in Spider's village, and Spider was our grandfather. And so he had 13 children, and then they all lived on that plot of land somewhere. And so we rented this house, as you can see in the top, with the goats. That house was $10 a month to rent. They dug us our own latrine, which is up in the top corner, and, you know, wrapped it in black plastic. There was no latrine before us there. And then, yeah, that's how we ate and did our laundry. And it was quite an experience. I spent many months here and absolutely loved what I took away from it. This is the inside of our house at the top. In the daylight, and then at night, this was me sewing by candlelight and headlamp. we were always in our house by dusk. So then we had like 3 hours before we could feasibly go to bed at 8 p.m. And so we would read books and sew clothes. And then we definitely did not have running water or electricity. And so we had to get that from the well next door. And has anyone used a brazier before where you put the coals on top of this thing in the bottom? It's called a brazier. And then you have to swing it to get the coals to light on fire. And then that's what you use to cook your food and also clean your water. It was such a process. And it was just incredible because honestly, it, it, you don't think you can do this until you're in the situation and you're like, actually, this isn't that hard and it's quite fun. And it's not like something that I would necessarily want to do for the rest of my life, but I'm so glad that I had this opportunity to experience living like this for so many reasons. I think about it all the time. And then after 6 months in Zambia, I went back to St. Vincent in the Caribbean and Bequia, one of the Grenadines islands. And we had to sort of wrap up our program and teach, do a community service project for the country, for St. Vincent, using what we learned. And also, we got to experience 2 more months living in the Caribbean. So this giant picture is the night that we went manikou hunting with a few Rasta men. As you can see, manicous are possums. And so we basically took a BB gun into the forests and looked for the eyes of these possums in the trees and with flashlights, and then used the BB gun, and then we would have a Rasta sort of climb up the tree and scramble to get this possum out of the tree, and then we would carry it the rest of the night until we got back when they cooked it and we ate it. It was all done at like from midnight until 4 a.m. It was pretty crazy. And then also at the top there, you can see this fish. This was a guy that we were friends with that used a fish gun because we were actually camping with no food in St. Vincent and Bequia actually. And we literally foraged for yams and lemons and things like that. And then the guys went out into the sea and actually fished with fish guns. And that's like how we ate. And it was just an incredible experience. And I want to say this because eating at really cool restaurants is an amazing thing when you're abroad, but when you actually live places or you're with people that can show you these sides that are like hunting manicous and hunting fish and then you're eating it right away, that's so cool, man. These are experiences that I can't ever forget. So then I went home and I spent about 2 months in Connecticut before I broke and booked a ticket to Costa Rica. I was like, I can't do Connecticut life anymore. And so I actually found this sustainable living facility called Rancho Mastatal. And it's in central Costa Rica. And I stayed there for about 2 months and we did a lot of farming again. We made our own beer out of turmeric. We were raising goats. We were all sorts of things. And it was just, again, a really good reminder of like connecting yourself to nature is so important. But also for me, it was a reminder, I need to be involved in the travel industry in some way. I can't just go back to Connecticut and live my normal life before. I was having breakdown after breakdown after breakdown. It was really hard after 5 years. I mean, I missed my family, so I went home, but it was really hard after 5 years to just slide back into my normal life. And that's why I ended up in Costa Rica. And when I was there, I said, listen, if I'm going to live in America, I at least need to work and travel. And so right after Costa Rica is when I met Nomadic Matt. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I went to a networking event. I recognized Matt because had been following him. I creepily introduced him to some people at the networking event in front of him, and he was like, "Who are you? Why do you know me?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Erica. I'm a big fan." And he was like, "Well, what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I've been living abroad for 5 years, but I'm back now and I'm looking for a job in travel." And he was basically like, "Well, I mean, would you want to work for me?" And I was like, "That's not real. Are you being real right now?" And he said, "Yeah, send me an email with your resume." And I started working for him 3 days later. And that was over 7 years ago. And he's basically taught me everything I know. And I always laugh because I have a design degree. And pretty much before I met Matt, I didn't even have a phone. So talk about not tech savvy and then working for a blog. It was a pretty huge transition and a very steep learning curve, but it was pretty incredible. And that afforded me the opportunity to work remotely all over the world. And I took such advantage of that. I spent months in Thailand, months on a yoga retreat in Cambodia. I would go for like 6 weeks to visit my friends in the Middle East. Here I am in Iceland. And yeah, it was a really great thing. I say for those of you who just became remote, once the world opens up again, please take advantage of it because it is such a cool opportunity. And also, I would say stay in touch with the people you befriend, because once I got a remote job, I literally never missed a wedding, never missed a friend's like invitation to come to any country. These are my friends from university. So when I went to school in Qatar, I've literally gone to Qatar every single year since 2008, except for 2020. But I've gone back for everyone's wedding, for their engagement parties. I've been all over that region because, you know, the people in Qatar are not necessarily all Qataris. They're Jordanians, they're Egyptians, Tunisians, Palestinians. And so I've been to all these places that they're from, just to experience it with them. And it's been really incredible. All right, so then I prepared some travel tips. And these are not like Nomadic Matt travel tips. These aren't necessarily budget travel tips. They're more like contextualizing travel. So first, I want to say, go places people don't usually go. And there's a few reasons for that. First, you'll have so many you'll have such fewer expectations and you won't be disappointed. Like who's gone to a place like Paris where people are, oh, you have to go to this restaurant and you have to go see the Eiffel Tower at night and all this stuff. And they tell you all these things to do and you have built it up in your head so much that when you get there, maybe it's not as cool as you built it up in your head, right? Or maybe it's raining or something, it's too cold to go there. And then you feel disappointed. Like, go places you don't usually go so you're pleasantly surprised. You don't know what's happening there, and all of a sudden there's a parade and you just feel like you're in the moment and you didn't know what was going to happen. That's the best. And then you can share the beauty of that place with people in your life. Like, after I went to Qatar, I became this girl that everyone knew of as the girl that lived in Qatar, even to the point where I met this guy 5 years after I'd been in Qatar, and I started talking about Qatar, and he was like, "Oh, I met this girl that once lived in Qatar." I was like, "Was it me?" He was like, "Well, did you used to waitress at this Irish pub downtown?" I was like, "Yeah, that was me." Like, nobody in my town has been to Qatar. Like, that was me. It had to have been. And then I would also say, like I mentioned before, if people warn you against going there because they don't know what's going to be there, just prove them wrong by having the best time of your life. And then a super bonus is if you're a content creator, your content will be found in searches. So I have a YouTube video that has like 40,000 views. I think I have 40 subscribers, But I made a video about St. Vincent called I Love My Life, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And at the time, nobody had made it. It was like the #1 search result for St. Vincent. And so that there are still places that you could actually do that. So if you're a blogger, you know, I go on blogs and I'm like researching, like, what is there to do in Qatar? There's not that much out there. What is there to do in St. Vincent? So if you go to these places, now if you try to do that with Thailand, you'll be on the 40th page of Google. And then another tip would be to say yes to anything you can. These are just some random stories, but I was dressed in a Korean traditional hanbok and went to this ceremony at a temple. And because I was in a hanbok, they asked us to speak to thousands of people in the crowd in Korean. And we just did. It was a mess, but it was great. And it was a really cool experience. And as you can see, the first line of people are a bunch of elderly monks. And so that was intimidating, but also incredible. Here I am with a chicken. My friend and I, Karina, who is in Zambia, we were vegetarians at the time. And somebody had said thank you to Karina for visiting by giving her a chicken. And we were traveling at the time through Zambia. We're like, what are we going to do with this chicken? We don't eat it. We can't take it with us. We're about to travel for 2 weeks. So we literally sold this chicken on the street corner in Zambia. And then we felt so bad that we sold it for a few dollars. We felt so bad that this guy was working a jean shop that we just went into the jean shop and we bought a pair of jeans for the exact same price. So we basically traded a chicken for a pair of jeans, which was probably the coolest trade I've ever done. And then this is a sign in Qatar that had my face on it when we had graduation. They said, who wants to get photographed for, just, I don't know why they were advertising graduation, but I was on this sign for like 2 months. It was awesome. So just say yes to everything. I would also say kindness is a currency, man. Contribute kindness always, but especially when you can't contribute some other way. So if somebody is inviting you somewhere and they're saying like, come to be with my family, you better make sure that you're in a great mood, in great spirits, and you are bringing something to that interaction, so that, even though you're not necessarily monetarily contributing, you're not a part of the family, so you're not really supposed to be there, like there's a reason for you to be there. Like add to the atmosphere and add in a positive way. Like you don't want to sit there in the corner and mope. Also, presence is key. So if you don't understand the language, I really challenge you not to be on your phone or, not engage. I have sat in so many circles of people that don't speak English or aren't speaking English at the time. I just sit there and pretend like I have my own subtitles in my head. I'm nodding along. I'm pretending I know what's happening. It's fine. You don't need to make a big deal about not understanding everything, especially if you're living in a country where they don't speak English typically. That's a huge tip, and it makes people feel comfortable and it makes them want to invite you back. And so that's definitely a good tip. And this photo of me, by the way, is of me getting mink eyelashes for one of my really good friend in college. She was a Qatari that got married, and she gave every one of her friends who wanted it mink eyelashes. I asked this woman how much she charged for my eyelashes, and it was $500. I was like, this is the most expensive thing I've ever done in my entire life, and also the fanciest, and I will never be this fancy again. Let me just drink it in and live it up. And yeah, it was awesome. Also a tip is to stay put. In the 14 months that I lived in South Korea, I went to the airport twice. Now, if you talk to people in South Korea, that's not typical. People usually run away to Thailand, they run away to Cambodia, to all these places on their vacations. I did not do that. All I did was explore Korea, and it was so fun. And also, it gave me such a deep appreciation for Korea. I didn't go to Thailand, see how cheap everything was, come back to Korea when my vacation was over, and then, you know, ended up disappointed like a lot of my friends were doing. I was like, you know what? I'm good with Korea. I'll stay here. I'll go to this mud festival. I'll go to the sand festival. I'll go on surprise hikes in a mini skirt by accident. That's the bottom corner. I'll go to Jinjabongs. Ooh, if you've been to a Jinjabong in Korea or a Korean Jinjabong anywhere in the world, write that in the chat. Pro tip for budget travelers, you can sleep at a Jinjabong and they're usually like $10 to $15. So if you need a place to sleep and you're in Korea, definitely that's a Korean bathhouse. And then another tip is to put yourself in situations that are just like very different than you would. Like I said, I'm from Connecticut. I never did anything outside. I was never in a garden club. And I put myself in a sustainable living facility for like over 2 years. I was farming, I would say. This place is called Rancho Mastatal. It is one of the coolest places in Costa Rica. And I highly suggest if you ever go there, just staying one night in these incredible structures that they have. But you could also stay there for a few months and volunteer there. So really, really, it's very character building. And it also just puts you in situations like, I don't know if I could ever do this in Connecticut or New York, you know? I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong, but it's just the feeling I get. And then another tip is most of the times you get what you pay for. So if you're budget traveling, lower your expectations so much so you can be content. So like I said, this was in Zambia. This was my house. It was $10 a month. I will never live that cheaply ever again. But again, this house was made out of termite clay. And we had bugs galore because there were little holes everywhere and it was freezing. I had to tie pants around my neck at night because I was so cold. And you know, we didn't have any cabinets or anything. So we just stacked our clothes on the side of our bed. And one day we realized that a rat had like eaten through all of our jeans. So, but you know, I was only paying $10 a month. And so I wasn't upset about that, you know, like I just accepted it as part of it. Now I've done other travels in my life that aren't as budget minded, and I get frustrated pretty quickly when I spend a lot of money and then I'm not, you know, my expectations aren't met. So this is a really good tip. And then it also shows you how far you can go and still survive. Like one of the things that used to irk me the most about when I told people about this part of my life, they'd say, oh, I could never do that. And I would always say, this is the easiest thing you could do. You're literally just sleeping in a room. Like anyone in the world could do this. You just don't want to put yourself in that situation. So it is a really cool way to sort of see how far you can go and also cultivate gratefulness in your life, because I never want to sleep with a pair of jeans tied around my neck again after this. And then patience is very necessary, especially when you're coming from fast, efficient societies. This was something that we learned in Zambia, especially just watching family members do what they did every day was a big lesson in patience. I know you guys have heard of like whatever that is, Zambian time or Caribbean time or whatever. What you don't realize is that like that comes from somewhere. So in Zambia, people were late a lot. And, you know, if you were just looking on it from the outside looking in, you would say, ooh, people like don't care about timing. But if you sort of like peek inside and see why people are late, you'd realize that it takes hours to wake up in the morning. Wake up, go get the water, heat the water, bathe all your children, like do all the things. And so like going to your meeting is not high on the priority list, you know? And so patience is really key. And yeah, just travel with patience. It makes it so much easier in life. And then another tip, which I always get asked, like, how did you go to a country that didn't speak English and how did people understand you? Let me tell you, in this place where there's 200 people I'm living with in Zambia, if there were 10 people, one of them could understand me enough, you know? And I don't know if that's like with English or just with charades. I have had to charade some crazy things in my life, but I would say like you're fine pretty much anywhere in the world. Like people can understand you, especially if you need something, like you can get your point across. And then also, mishaps and bad times usually make for great and hilarious stories. So this is actually my 25th birthday. Karina had taken me on an adventure. We hitchhiked 200 kilometers on like 7 different rides to get to this place. She didn't tell me where it was because it was my birthday and it was a surprise. So we finally get to this destination and she tells me, okay, there's a waterfall that's 7 kilometers down this dirt road. I was like, oh, that's so fun after like 5 or 6 hours of hitchhiking. That's so fun. Okay, let's find somebody with a car. So we like found the first person. We said, who has a car in this village? And so they brought us to the person with a car in the village. And that one person with the one car in the village also had no gas. We were like, oh my God. Okay, well, I guess we're eating my birthday cake on the grass here, 200 kilometers away from our house. And then we just turned around and got in another hitchhike and hitchhiked back before dark. But that's us sitting on top of like egg cartons and amidst like egg crates and all such crazy things. And then I threw that picture in from the Caribbean again. Hitchhiking was pretty cool. I did it safely. If you have questions, you could ask that. But also, definitely find things that bring you joy that you couldn't really do at home. This is a wedding dress cafe in South Korea. You'd have to Google it. I don't know the name of it, but basically they have different tiers of wedding dresses and you pay like $5 or $10 or $20. And then you put on the dress and you put a little tiara on your head and you take pictures all around the cafe. That was the whole thing. That was 10 years ago. That was before Instagram. And so it was an incredible experience and so worth paying for. Another tip is tough situations create stronger bonds with those around you. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that country was incredible. The program I was in was questionable. And we had to do a lot of things each day. We had a lot of farming. Our days were basically planned from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. We were doing a lot of heavy work. It was run really strangely. And so what was incredible about this was the people that showed up, all these international people, really got close to each other. And actually, we have out of the 30 people that live there, there are like 5 married couples out of this situation. And that's how I found my best friend who I've traveled with to 12 other countries. So this girl, that's us in Dubai. So if you're in a situation that seems like terrible or it seems really hard, just try to find the silver lining. And like, that's definitely a silver lining. I've never, like, not even my college produced 5 married couples. Another tip is if you can, travel hack. That's all I'll say about this. If you can, start travel hacking right now. That's for people in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but if you can, start travel hacking. Also, travel as cheaply as possible. And I say this, there are so many cheap things you can do. I found a guest house in Vietnam My bed is in this corner photo. I slept semi outside with a roof over me. It was beautiful. Stayed there for 3 weeks before they even tried to charge me for anything. And I had eaten 2 meals a day there, slept there, booked a bike tour there and all this stuff. And when I said, okay, just give me the bill, I'll pay off what I owe you so far, I think the bill was like $150 or something like that. And I was there for 3 weeks eating all my food and sleeping, and it was right on the beach, and it was incredible. It's actually called Under the Coconut Tree Guest House in Hoi An. And so, yeah, try to find things that are cheap. Like this yoga class I went to ended up being $2 a class. There was another one that was run by an American that was $10 a class that I was thinking, maybe I should go there. And then I totally nixed it when I saw the price tag, and it was one of the best things I did there. Went to yoga every day. Also, you can safari really cheaply. I went on a very expensive safari in Zambia because I didn't know any better. And then I went to South Africa with an ex-boyfriend's family who lived there. And we did the cheapest safari. I think it cost us like $200 a person. My first safari cost like $1,500 a person. And so I would just say the basic gist of this is rent a car, stay outside of a national park. They are like any hotel next to a national park is the same thing as being in a national park. And then do the day tours from the actual fancy resorts. They're like $20 add-ons, you know, you don't actually have to stay there for $500 a night. And then you can also eat regularly priced food. You don't have to eat all the resort food. All right, but I'm saying this and I want to say, but do not haggle too hard, and always, always, always check your privilege. I've seen so many tourists and so many foreigners haggle down to the bone, and it makes me so annoyed. But yeah, check your privilege, especially in developing countries. I put this picture of this really strange sandwich. It was like the American thing you could eat in the town next to us in Zambia. And I think this ketchup made me sick. And I was sick for I think like a week or 5 days before I was so sick that I thought I was gonna die. So I had gone to the fanciest doctors. They had one public doctor and then 2 private doctors. So I went to the 2 private doctors, paid them to get me medicine and all this stuff, was sick for 5 days straight, thought I was gonna die, was like literally on the floor, like keeled over, like tell my mom I love her. And I told the person that was in charge of me from the nonprofit, I said, listen, I'm literally like, something is going to burst inside of me. They were like, okay, we'll come pick you up and we'll bring you to the second capital, Ndola in Zambia. We'll bring you to the second capital and we'll fix you here. And I said, okay, how do I get there? They were like, we'll send a car, even though it was 5 hours away. So I laid there for 5 hours. Then I was in a car for 5 hours. They took me to a doctor in this capital or second capital. And I was fine within 10 minutes. So I tell you that story because like I could actually afford and had the resources to do that. But like, check your privilege. Like that is a very privileged position I was in. If I wasn't a part of this program, if somebody didn't offer to come pick me up from this capital, I could have literally had something explode inside of me. I could have been not here today. So definitely realize how privileged you are. And then remember, you're representing your country. This is a tour guide in Vietnam. And we had so much fun with him, my friend and I, Kate, who's pictured in the middle. It was supposed to be a bike tour for a bunch of people. It just ended up being us. We ended up having so much fun with him. We took selfies with him. We went to the bank. We had him, take us to coffee, even though that wasn't on the tour. We were just like, what do you want to do? Like, and we had so much fun that at the end, he invited us to his family's house for dinner. And so he sent a car for us, or a taxi for us, a few days later, and we went to his family's house. This is his family's house. We ate on the floor, squids. I'd never eaten squids before. We ate on the floor. We cooked the dessert with his wife, and it was so great. And at the end, I said, "How many people have you invited to your house for dinner?" And he was like, no one. I was like, "Wait, what do you mean you've never invited?" Like, it seemed so normal. And he was like, "Actually, you guys are the first foreigners that my family has ever spoken to and ever talked to." And so, like, really, really know that you're representing your country, and people are looking at you like, as wherever you're from, the Canadian, the American, the person from Pakistan, like, they are going to judge your whole country based on how you act. So be really great, be really nice with people, and then, I don't know, maybe you'll end up at someone's house for dinner. Also, experience, there's only a few more slides, I promise. Experience day-to-day activities. In Iceland, they sell yarn in the supermarkets. Hilarious. Lots of yarn. This is a photo of me well, the other two photos are of me in Ghana last year. I went to 2 church ceremonies. I love going to church in other countries. It is one of my favorite things to do. I don't go to church in America. Was not raised religious, but I think it's such an incredible way to peek into culture. And I also, I also have shared this on some TNN events, but I love going to doctors in other countries. Like, I wouldn't say just like go hop into a doctor's office, but if you're sick, go to the doctor. It's such an experience. Last New Year's Eve, I had food poisoning in Ghana. I ate a bad mango, and when I was there, they found out that I had a little bit of malaria also. So they treated me for both. But it was an incredible thing. And the whole, like, they gave me all the tests and everything all together, I think cost $90. So don't be scared of the doctor. Go. It's very interesting. And then another tip is to use these trips. Like, if you're going on trips, use them to get healthier than you are at home. You know, I did a 2-week-long coconut water only cleanse once. I would never be able to do that at home. I've become vegetarian at the beginning of trips, and then that's like lingered into my life. I always use the time zone to make myself an early riser. So whenever I change time zones, I start waking up at like 6 in the morning. It's incredible. And then just eliminate any bad habits. If you don't like that you drink wine every day, like, don't do that wherever you go. Just change it, like, change your situation wherever you go. And then take chances and go on random adventures. This girl in the red scarf, her name is Erica also. We were hitchhiking in Iceland, and we only wanted to go an hour to the next town, to Vik, and we asked her where she was going, and she said she's going to, somebody can write it in the chat. I'm not sure how, I always forget the name, but it's the J location with all the icebergs in Iceland. And she said, "Oh, I'm going here. There's a fireworks display tonight." And we said, "Oh, when are you coming back?" She was like, "Right after." So our 1-hour hitchhike turned into a 24-hour hitchhike. And we stayed with her for an entire day. And then 2 years later, when I was back in Iceland, I called her and I said, or I messaged her on Facebook and I said, "I'm back in Iceland." And she's like, "Oh, let's meet for lunch." Come to find out, she had had a baby the day before. So that's the photo of us at the bottom. And it was incredible. She's really nice. We stay in touch. And then also make sure you have flexible plans. So once I was in Switzerland, I posted a picture. I said, "I'm in Zurich." And this guy that I had met in the Caribbean, who was Italian, was living in the town next to me, or in the town next to Zurich. And so he took me around for a day, and we just like had nothing to do. We just went to a waterfall, and then we started walking, and then we stumbled onto a farm, and we asked if we could help with the cows. And so then we were milking cows the rest of the afternoon, and it was pretty great. So leave time for discovery and for being bored enough to do things like this. Also, share your plans with local people. I was on a research trip for the Iceland guide, and I knew I was going to this island in the north called Grimsey. And so I actually have a friend who has a friend in Iceland. And so I met her for lunch the first day I was in the capital in Reykjavik. And that's the picture of us at the top. And we had so much fun at lunch. She said, I'm going back to school to teach my fourth graders. Do you want to come to the class with me? And so I went and spoke to her fourth grade class for an hour, and they told me where to go. Like, these fourth graders were telling me what to do in Iceland. And turns out that that teacher knew the teacher and principal of this tiny little island of 42 people at the top of Iceland. So that's the bottom photo of us. So when I went to that island, she actually drove me around so I could see every single thing before the ferry left. So yeah, highly recommend that. And then I just wanted to sort of end on the context for why I love traveling. All these are my friends from college. They're all from different parts of the Middle East. We all met in Qatar, and I would say that I think that traveling honestly has the power to heal the world. I think the more people that travel, the more people meet people that they feel like are the other. And once you meet a bunch of others, you realize that there is no other, and you realize that we are just people. And instead of, thinking that this place is scary or that country is full of mean people, or, whatever preconceived notions we have because of the media, we realize that, like, no, these are just all people, and we're all just talking about, crushes on boys and what we're going to get on our grade, for grades and stuff like that. And you realize we're all just the same kind of person, and it builds the kind of empathy that actually has the power to create more love in the world. And if there's so much love in the world, there also can't be, it crowds out the hate, And so when people decide, like, when people are older and they're on these committees that are deciding, like, if we go to war or not, like, hopefully those people have learned, no, we don't need to go to war. We could actually just all live peacefully together. And so that's the context for why I love traveling. That's also why I love travelers. So that's why I love you guys and this community so much, is because I feel like we honestly have the potential to change the world. And then I just wanted to share with you my future. So this is my husband. He's from Ghana, and we have this plan for 552. It's 5 months in New York, 5 months in California, and 2 months in Ghana every year. And it has been my dream to have 3 different home locations ever since I started living abroad. And it just happened to be that this guy that I fell in love with has family in Ghana and has a house that that's big enough for us to live in for 2 months a year. And so it's been really incredible. And that was a dream that I made years ago when I was traveling. And now it's finally at least sort of coming to fruition. And then that's it. I don't know what time it is. Wow, that was a long presentation.
Eric, that was amazing. Oh my gosh, I think everyone could listen to you for hours. So you are totally fine. And I know just from seeing everyone's faces, you totally inspire us. We were entranced with everything you said. And for me, the tips were amazing. I think they were made me think differently about a lot of stuff. So appreciative of having you here. I know everyone, I'm sure, is so overjoyed to hear your stories finally. So thank you. And I know there's many more you probably didn't share with us.
Oh, there's so many more. I see so many questions. I'm happy to stay on as long as you guys want. And also, like I said, if you just message me through Instagram, I'll send you this because it's probably going to go on a while longer.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So if anyone needs to drop off, since we've gone over the hour, feel free to, but hopefully you guys can stay on because we have some great questions for Erica. So I'll just start firing them off at you if you don't mind. First one, I was just curious, how long did those $500 mink eyelashes last?
Oh my God. I did not pluck any of them off. I literally met my boyfriend, and I only had 2 tiny mink eyelashes in the corner of my eye. It was so embarrassing, but I was not taking them off. That was like, they were like $25 an eyelash. I don't know. I think it was like a month. I looked really fancy for a month.
That's all right. You got it, right? For a little bit. Okay, I have to start with Clay's question. He says, it looks like maybe you inspire your travel partners to match outfits with you, not just your husband. So when did that start?
That is not an inspirational thing. I copy everyone's outfits. So I just see what people are wearing and then I change.
You just carry a big suitcase with you, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, we know you do that. It was obvious from some of the pictures. So too funny. Typical Erica. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so from Laura, this is way back. She was curious, when did you start study in Qatar? And am I pronouncing that correctly? Someone else asked how.
Yeah, so great question. Great question. I started studying in Qatar in 2008. Qatar is an Arabic word. If you don't speak Arabic, you cannot pronounce it correctly. So, you know, you can pronounce it all you want. You won't pronounce it like an Arab will pronounce it. And that's exactly how you say it. So I say Qatar, people say Qatar, whatever. No Arab person has ever questioned my pronunciation, but non-Arabs question it all the time.
Okay, good to know. I tend to always butcher that stuff, so I wasn't sure. Let's see. Will had a question. He was curious, what is the name of the program that took you to St. Vincent and then Africa?
Okay, so that program doesn't exist to Africa anymore. It's called Richmond Vale Academy. Like I said, it was questionable. I know some other people that have gone to it recently and that have said that it's, you know, good. But don't just go off of my recommendation. I feel like I make the best out of a lot of situations, and I could tell you a lot of other stories about what was happening there that may turn you off. But it was an incredible learning experience. I just don't really recommend people go through the exact program. And it does not go to Africa anymore. They do a lot of climate change, they do a lot with climate change in St. Vincent. So if you're very interested in nature and you don't want to, for some reason, woof, which is a really cool option, you could go there, but I don't know. Woofing is probably just as cool.
Okay, good. And yeah, someone else asked if maybe you could write down a list of the organizations you've talked about, if there's others, or if they connect with you on Instagram, we can get it that way.
Instagram, I will tell you whatever you want. I am an open book. I will tell you whatever you want. I will connect you with anyone you want, but just ask me specific questions and I'll do that. Okay. I thought about making a list and then I was like, I can't make a list. I could probably say a billion different things.
Okay, so, perfect. Well, I just everyone put it down there in the chat, so you can connect with Erica to get any of your questions answered if we don't get to them today. Okay, Jason had a question about if you can talk a little bit about your tech life. Now that you've been immersed and you're used to being plugged in, how do you go about unplugging? Do you think it's possible? And just your general thoughts on that.
I used to be so much better about unplugging before the lockdown. Now I feel like I'm glued to my phone and computer all day. So I'm like double teched all day. Yeah, it's hard. I would say put yourself in situations where you can't, you know, go to places where there is no phone or internet access and just like be with that. I definitely loved my time in Cambodia. I spent at a yoga retreat because it was like a big no-no to use your phone. And so you actually had to talk to people all day and that's not the norm anymore. And so, yeah, I would say I struggle with that at home and I try to be really conscious when I'm around other people. But it's everyone's problem right now.
It's hard to do. I know. We try the best we can, right?
I will say that St. Vincent was incredible because it was a tiny island. The whole island of St. Vincent, the mainland, is like 12 12 miles by like 7 miles. It's so small. And so people would ask us, what's your phone number? And we'd be like, we don't have a phone. This is the tiniest island. Just call our name. So we would be walking down the street and people would be like, Erica. And we would look and you could see like across the valley on top. Oh, there's Gilroy, like farming. And we would go walk to him. I mean, it would take us like an hour. It wasn't that close, but we could hear them. So that was pretty cool. So put yourself in situations like that where you don't need technology.
Yeah, so true. Jason also had a question about, do you travel with medical insurance usually?
Ugh. I mean, these travels were up until 2014, 13, 14. The answer is absolutely not. I didn't even know that existed. I was young and just, I didn't know. Now I do. I travel with insurance. I definitely do, especially if I think that there's a chance that, you know, something could go wrong. But yeah, before I didn't. I had American medical insurance, but every time I went to a doctor, I found that it was awesome and super cheap. I mean, in South Korea, I got every possible vaccine I could get. I also got a bunch of work done and I never paid more than like $100 any visit. And I also got all my teeth filled. I don't have dental insurance, haven't had it since I was 18. I got all my teeth filled in Costa Rica, and I did that for 3 days, and I think my total bill was like $210. It was insane. It was cheaper than one X-ray in Connecticut. So I would say, obviously, like insurance is incredible. You should definitely get travel insurance, but also doctors in other places. Once you go to a doctor in another country, you'll realize how crazy our system is if you're an American.
I agree. Anytime we've ever needed medical insurance or medical issues abroad with myself or my family, it's amazing how cheap and how wonderful they are.
Yeah.
And I've been blown away. So I hear you on that one. Okay, Susan was curious if your parents were supportive or are supportive of your traveling life.
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I have always looked super young. When I was traveling in Zambia, people used to ask our age, and both Karina and I looked very young. And once somebody guessed 14 years old, and I was like, why would a 14-year-old be hitchhiking with you in Zambia right now? That's crazy. So I've always looked super young. So my parents were worried about me in that respect, that I just look like this child, like running around the world. But my mom came to visit me in Zambia, which was like 4 years into me living abroad. And when she saw that I could really like hold my own and I was holding her passport and I was in charge of everything on the trip, she was like, okay, I'm okay with you now. Like, I feel safe knowing that you're abroad. But I think for the first few years, she was a little scared because I do sort of wander through the world a little bit like Mr. Magoo, where like things happen as I'm walking behind me and I'm just a little bit oblivious to them, but you know, it works for me. So they were very supportive, like on a do what you want to make yourself happy and like you're exploring the world. But they were definitely scared for me for a while.
And they know who you are, so I'm sure they couldn't stop you anyway, right?
No, that was great because I paid for everything, so I didn't have to answer to anyone. So yeah,
Very
my
smart.
my parents could say like, please don't go, but if I was paying, then I don't know.
Exactly. Okay, Elijah, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. What is the next place that you want to travel to?
Oh, I mean, okay, we're in a lockdown. I don't know. I have no like ambitions to travel right now. I just want to be happy in my day-to-day life in Roosevelt Island. I actually live in a very tiny island in New York. There's only 13,000 people that live here, and so it sort of feels like, even though it's small, it feels like a little bit of a vacation over here. The next travels I will do are to Ghana, because I am, I'm 7 months pregnant for those of you that don't know. So this little baby has got to go meet its grandparents. And so we're going to Ghana at some point in the second half of next year, whenever it's safe, for our son to meet his grandparents. But yeah, I have tons of ambitions for going to places. And usually, I'll tell you how I usually pick it is I usually pick destinations by opportunity. So like if I know somebody there that can take me around, that's where I want to go. And also places that I haven't heard of people going. That's sort of where I like to go the most. And so if I'm going to Iceland, I've heard of tons of people going there. Like, where can I go in Iceland that I haven't heard of people going? So instead of the south, I went all over the north of Iceland. And, so I try to go to these unpopular places, not because I feel like there's not going to be tourists around, but more because I want to be surprised by what's there. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. I think we all need to do a little bit of that too. Okay, so I've got a couple more questions. So Jane was curious, how often did you end up getting sick when you were traveling around? You mentioned quite a few times, and I know some pretty.
One time each country. One time each country. So I never really got that sick. It was always like a food poisoning thing or something like that. I will say that I got in a motorbike accident the 10th day of Zambia. And that was pretty terrifying because I got in a motorbike accident. It was really small. It was like the tiniest motorbike accident you could ever get in. Our motorbike was just, I wasn't driving, I was on the back, and it sort of teetered. We hit a hole and we sort of teetered and fell off. Like, we didn't crash into anything or anything like that. But I ended up profusely bleeding. From an undisclosed location, and we were 40 kilometers off the tar road and away from the city. And that 40 kilometers, which is what, like 25 miles, took us 2 hours to get to the tar road and to get to the hospital and to get the stitches I needed. And in that 2 hours, I definitely thought I was going to die because I thought I would just bleed out, like, completely. And so I didn't. I got the stitches I needed and I healed in a few days. And but one time each country. So I'm not like a very sick person, but every once in a while my stomach doesn't agree with me.
Good. Well, you love the doctor's offices, so there you go. You just need to write a whole thing about all your experiences with that in every country.
Exactly.
And then Jane had one other question. It's about travel hacking. So Jane, I'll just say we have had a couple presenters actually speak on that, and I'm sure we'll have more in the future. But Erica, maybe you can just give a really quick blurb on what travel hacking is.
Yeah, travel hacking is just using points and miles to get free flights and hotel rooms. So Americans, Canadians, Australians, and New Zealanders, Kiwis, can get credit cards, and then you can build up your points, and then you can trade in the points for free flights. And so ever since I started working with Nomadic Matt, I read the guide to travel hacking and honestly changed my whole life. I've taken so many free flights. We could talk about this for hours, and I'm not even that good at travel hacking, but I'm so passionate about it. Like, if you have credit card debt, or your credit score is not up to par, like, fix that immediately so you can start travel hacking, because the best kind of travel is free travel. So definitely, Jane, you can talk to me about that. But I honestly just recommend getting Matt's Ultimate Guide to Travel Hacking. It's so plainly written about how to do it.
Okay, perfect. And we are going to end on this final question because I know I'm really curious about this too. So Carolyn's curious if you can share more about your 552 plan. You mentioned your husband's house in Ghana. So it's going to wait for you for the months you're not there. And then what are you going to do the other months?
That's such a funny question. So I would have to, for one, 90% of my personality is travel, right? So when I was on these dating apps, I had interwoven travel into a bunch of it, because if these guys that wanted to take me on dates didn't travel, I would be a really annoying person to date, because I tell so many travel stories. I'm so obsessed with travel. I'm in the travel industry. So it led me to my husband, who I found on Hinge. And honestly, like, he was very intrigued because he's from Ghana. I had lived in Zambia. I wrote that. So like my world travels have seeped into my life in so many ways, but the best way is that it brought me to my husband. And so very early on, we discussed like where we want to live and what our intentions are. And so we came up with this plan, like 5 5 2, like 5 months in New York, because my family lives very close to here, and we would like to rent an apartment here because it's just crazy expensive to buy, and then buy a place somewhere in the suburbs in California so that we don't ever have to do winter here. And he has family in California, and so we could be by his family and friends in California. And then 2 months the summers in Ghana, because obviously my son is not American. My son is African American, and I really want to make sure that he knows that like there are parts of the world where Black people are the majority and they're not the minority. And I want him to have that experience of just like feeling that. I have talked to lots of people, and that's become a big part of their personality, and I want to make sure that like my son has that. If I have any future kids, I want to make sure that they know that where they come from and all that sort of stuff. So that was the 552 plan that we created. And yeah, so his parents still live in Ghana. They have a house there, and they built it over the course of 25 years, and it's big enough to house all of their sons at the same time and their families. So we have a spot to go to whenever we want. And so it's really great. And that's our plan. That was a long-winded answer.
It's amazing. I love it. And I can't wait for you to start on that adventure soon. It's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So I think I got all the questions answered. One person, the last question I saw come through, was it a girl or a boy? But I think you just
answered that. Boy. Yay. And in Ghana, they have a tradition that if it's a boy born on a Monday, or a boy born on a Tuesday or Wednesday, or a girl born on a Wednesday, they have the same middle name. So we have the middle name picked out depending on when this guy wants to show up. Wow. They're really cool names too.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Oh,
well, Erica, awesome. Thank you so much. This was amazing, absolutely inspiring. Like I said, we could probably have you talk forever and ever about this. So everyone, please go connect with Erica if you want to hear more stories. And we're so happy after you hosting so many events for us, you finally got to talk to us. So yay, yay for you.
Thank you.
You guys are amazing. Thank you for showing up, and not just for this one, but for all of these, like so many familiar faces. And I'm just like, I feel really grateful to be a part of this community and just have you guys around all the time. Thank you so much.
It's so phenomenal. And I was going to share my screen. Looks like I'm not able to, but I'm just going to tell you guys real quick to go onto the Nomadic Network website /events, and you can find out the next events that we have coming up. But tonight, DC kicks off their 2021 with a happy hour tonight. So if you live in the area, or if you just want to stop by, come join that. So those are a little bit different, where they are virtual events, and well, not virtual, but virtual happy hours. And so rather than this where we have a presenter speak, it's more everyone will be unmuted, kind of share tips with each other and get to know your local community a little bit better. So check out the calendar, because that one's tonight. And then next week we have one for California, Canada, and I believe Chicago. And then next week we have a great presenter coming to talk to us about hiking Mount Kilimanjaro. So if you've ever wanted to do that, that'll be a great presentation to hear. And then we have Nomadic Matt himself, who's going to speak to us about social media hacks and how to get our blog up and running in 2021. So many more other events on the calendar. We actually have tons for January and February already up there. So definitely take a look, see what there is. And one other thing is we've started a book club. So every month we have different authors coming to speak. You don't necessarily have to read the book before. It's a good idea to, but we have another one coming up in February. So check that out. And again, as I mentioned, if you want a replay of this event or any of the other ones you've missed, go on over to Patreon and check that out for more information. Just another good way to give back to this phenomenal team that has given us so many great things this year virtually. And that's it. Thank you all so much for coming today. I really appreciate all of you being here and staying on so long and such great questions and just supporting Erica and the whole community. We couldn't do this without you, and this is what makes it so fun. And thank you. Have a great day, and we hope to see you at another event.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Laura, for hosting me.
I'm honored. I was so excited to host you.